All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And today we got a little bit of interesting drama with Rasmussen polls. As you guys know, very reputable. Rasmussen does all kinds of polling along with Quinnipiac and Wall Street Journal, all those other biggies. Anyway, whoever runs their Twitter account is the they that we're talking about here, okay, has definitely jumped into the Poll the People campaign and has been kind of attacking and dogging and ribbing the DNC for not including some of their polls, in which Andrew Yang is clocking 9% nationally, 6% in the polls that matter. I mean, well beyond, quote, qualification for the next debates, but some reason they're not there, and they're going to Twitter to air their grievance. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. Cody, tell us what's going on.
So I guess really quickly, we'll recap with the Poll of the People was a trend. They got a hashtag that got trending after Andrew Yang. The way the story came out was kind of funny. It was a leaked memo for about 35 minutes until Andrew Yang said it was a statement from his campaign. Anyway, he wrote a memo. He wrote a letter to the DNC asking for an increase in polling. There's been basically, I think literally not one qualifying poll conducted since the November debate has taken place in early states. Maybe one national one has taken place after. It's been sparse. So Andrew Yang reached out. Andrew Yang got a response. I want to see if they included the response from the DNC. Here we go. So the DNC rejected Andrew Yang's request, saying in a statement that sponsoring its own qualifying polls during a primary would break with the long-standard practice of both parties using independent polling for debate qualification, and would be inappropriate use of DNC resources that should be directed at beating Donald Trump. I like how they just kind of act like, well, if we can't commission more polls, there's nothing we could do to make sure more come out. We can't expand the polls we currently count as qualifying polls. No. We have to pay for them or nothing. So anyway, now
that's a pretty little campaign you got going there. There ain't nothing we can do to help protect it if you piss us off.
It's just they didn't want to actually address it, so they did what it's a very common argument tactic. You find a very unfair way of framing what your person's saying and shoot that down. It's like, well, could you maybe not be reasonable and say, however, we could maybe include another polling institution, like, for example, maybe Rasmussen, who just released a poll having Andrew Yang polling at, I believe, 9% nationally and 6% in likely DEM voters, to be one of the biggest polls he's ran. So what's interesting is Zach Montalero, he covers polling data for Politico. He posted a tweet saying about Andrew Yang's quarter four fundraising numbers, which, by the way, keep an eye out. We'll probably do a video about this tomorrow once everyone's announced so we can compare all the numbers. But Andrew Yang did raise $16.5 million in fourth quarter. So Rasmussen tweets under this saying, FYI, Zach, we have Andrew Yang at 6% among national Democrat likely voters this morning. Too bad for you, Miss Democratic voters. The DNC doesn't approve. They then spent the next 15, 20 minutes, I want to see, going through. He was actually, shout out to Mark Cluck on Twitter. He does he's an amateur photographer, I guess. Cool stuff. Anyway, Rasmussen reached back out to him saying, but he and every other Democratic candidate deserves fair, independent, and accurate national results, in reference to Andrew Yang in the polling. Here is the actual data itself I want to pull up. So here we go. This is, let me see if I can frame it a little better for you guys. It says, national survey conducted December 26th and 29th by Rasmussen Reports. You can see this gray box, or the green box right here. So which of these prominent Democrats best represents the party and would make the best candidate against President Trump if he runs for re-election? He's at 9% in that.
Yeah, look at that. That's just averages. Some of these demographics, he's hitting 12%.
Exactly. So, I mean,
that's impressive.
It was a good poll for Andrew Yang. However, it doesn't count for anything as far as
and here's the hilarious part, okay? Rasmussen, correct me if I'm wrong, but Rasmussen was one of the only polling institutions in 2016 that actually had a couple of polls that correctly predicted Donald Trump was up 2%. People used to dog on Rasmussen in 2015 and 2016.
Here we go.
And nobody was accurate. Like, once again, nobody was accurate. Their final prediction was indeed a Clinton victory, but they predicted a far smaller margin. So if I were the DNC, I'd almost go back and I'd almost say, hey, I want to see who was the closest to getting it right in the previous 3 elections. Rasmussen should be there.
Yeah, well, but one thing else I have to mention here. So actually, great lead into what I wanted to get into next.
Okay.
Something else. Rasmussen Reports Twitter account also dug up a tweet from about 3-4 months ago to re-bring this up. Now, full disclosure, digging through this, seems like 100% sour grapes that Rasmussen is not considered the DNC qualifying poll, which is the reason why they're being very adamant about how their poll would help Andrew Yang here, and they're trying to motivate the Yang gang. Anyway, to make an interesting point here, so They post this and they say, does polling accuracy count anymore? Again, this is all in reference to the DNC not having them as a qualified pollster. So many of you now are familiar with our open question to the DNC as to how they made their choice for approved pollsters. So we started with the American Research Group benchmarking analysis. So the following table lists the accuracy of pollsters in the November 8th, 2016 U.S. presidential election using the measurements of polling accuracy proposed by multiple researchers. An accuracy research of 0 indicates that the odds ratio of the survey results matches the odds ratio of the actual results, so closer to 0 to better. And you'll see Rasmussen is 0.
Oh, dude, just what I was saying right there.
Again, Rasmussen posting a study saying, what do you know, we're the best. But they go on, this is kind of interesting. So they say, we then layered in sequential number rankings and cross-referenced that with the official DNC list of approved pollsters and sponsors. The resulting chart is here. They have the chart, we'll open that in a second, but they say, as you can see, only 3 of the 12 ranked in the top 2016 top 10 for accuracy. 9 of the 12 fell below the top 10, and 3 of the approved firms gave no final 2016 estimates at all. Again, it is kind of interesting how the DNC is
that is an
the DNC is
indictment
insisting. And you have to trust USA Today. You have to trust NBC and the Wall Street Journal and CBS News and the Washington Post. All these big media companies that seem
that are favorable to us.
That's favorable. Hey, because there's something else. I mean, if you start releasing polls the DNC doesn't love, you think you get invited back next year? It's kind of a little bit access journalism in that sense, in a little way, but it's a little bit different. It's just when your polls count as qualifying polls, they're now weighted as being the real polls, right? But here we go. Here it is an interesting.
So they're saying CBS/the New York Times is a better polling organization than Rasmussen?
No, they're saying
because look, 10. Well, Rasmussen isn't in the top 10, but they're saying CBS and New York Times is. There's nobody in America that trusts what the New York Times says over what an independent university polls.
Yeah, and they go on to explain here more. So perhaps to compensate for his inconsistency, a new fable circulating them. But Sam, and this really kind of get into the people are challenging us, but. I mean, I would say it's worth pointing out that their polling data has never been insane. It's not like Rasmussen polls come out and you have to throw them out because they're crazy. They're basically in line with everyone else's polls, but like maybe a couple points here and there are different. So I just wanted to make sure, though, before I spent too much time talking about how Rasmussen came out and defended Andrew Yang on Twitter today. One, I mentioned that Rasmussen is also defending Andrew Yang in part of their attack against the DNC for excluding them, which I understand why they'd be upset, but that is what's going on here. But there was some funny stuff. I thought it was really funny. They actually tweeted this out on their own. They said, in case you missed it, Andrew Yang just achieved 6% nationally among likely Democrat voters this morning in our new poll. But unfortunately for as many Twitter supporters, we are not currently DNC approved. Perhaps the DNC should rethink their pollster qualifications. Again,
dude,
fairly
this guy's on savage mode today, man.
Fairly transparently just trying to motivate the Yang Gang to their ends, I will say. But, I mean, some of the points to bring up are pretty valid. And the last thing I wanted to highlight as far as the Rasmussen thing, where was it? So they go on here and they want to make sure I reference, because I will give Rasmussen this. If I don't pay them money, I can't pull up all their full polling data. So I pay the money for it. Yeah. Anyway, the 9% is the national.
They want the Yang Gang to subscribe.
9% is the national likely voters, and 6% among Democrat likely. Again, it's all likely votes, which are good polls anyway. But they being pollsters, they know. Like, talk to anyone who's like these political people. They literally only care about who voted Democrat most recently and will vote Democrat again. I want to know who they're going to vote for.
Yeah.
Because most people will tell you who they're going to vote for and then vote for the most popular candidate of all time. Didn't vote. So this is interesting. But and then I want to see if I can pull it up where somebody. Here we go. Somebody says, Rasmussen Twitter stirring up the masses. You love to see it. And they say, yeah, wait till the boss finds out. The reason I wanted to highlight that is, again, remember when you see these brand Twitter accounts or verified company Twitter accounts, it's not the CEO of the company tweeting this.
Yeah.
It is their social media manager.
And I'm loving this social media manager right now.
But yeah, because the only reason why I wanted to go through all this stuff is to make sure, like, here we go. Here's him definitely attacking people for how they were viewed in 2016. I just want to highlight that they're making really good points here. And this is, here we go. This is really interesting. I mean, it is that Andrew Yang just hit 6% and then nationally among likely voters. That should be moving him, you would think, closer to the conversation of, hey, he's now polling higher, I think, than like everyone else. I mean, Julian Castro's dropped out. He's polling at like 0 to 1% consistently. I don't know, man. I just wanted to kind of show you guys all this, how Rasmussen polling has directly called out the DNC. They were kind of circumventedly saying, hey, why aren't they counting us? Now they're just calling him out and saying, this is crap. But I would also say this is why the Poll the People and just the Andrew Yang, and it seems to me leaking the memo, releasing the statement was a win for him. I mean, it is worth noting the DNC still, I don't think, actually officially responded to Andrew Yang's campaign first.
And now they hate him.
They wrote a public statement. Again, he's I will say this as well. It's the last thing I want to wrap up with and give from you, but he's running the risk of painting himself into the corner Tulsi did in 2000. No, I guess, I forget that because Tulsi actually was like in Congress. He's not a politician. He can go back to private sector, but he's definitely, I don't know, man. When they're keeping you out, don't you kind of have to almost go scorched earth at one point to just force your way in? But at the same time, you make some enemies.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson said, when man loses everything, when a man loses everything, he loses it. And obviously he hasn't lost everything. He's not being backed into a corner of which there's no escape except for fighting your way out. But he's definitely showing signs of being on the bad side of DNC favoritism. He's not their guy, but he's seeking their nomination. And the DNC in 2018, 2019, and 2020 now has been blowing me away with how they are not changing their public perception of corruption. What they did in 2016 to Bernie Sanders, love him or hate him, was sheer, absolute, unadulterated corruption. And you'd think they'd at least be trying, if they were smart, they'd just go transparent. But if they were corrupt, they'd at least try and hide it better. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're not cheating, you're not trying, I guess, But they're not even, not taking Rasmussen polls. It actually, this is, what's funny is I'd read that top list before, but Rasmussen is like one of the top 5 that you hear about all the time.
I do believe, I don't want to go too hard on this, I do believe there is something about it along the lines of, like, remember how I referenced how you have to pay to see the Rasmussen polling results? I think there's certain things that they just do internally, how they run, that has excluded them from the DNC thing. I don't want to, it's not like an ideological DNC is like, not you. I think there's certain things in the way they conduct polls that has it so they're not counted as a counting poll. I guess I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't pull it up, I believe one of the big things was having to pay to see full polling data. Because you'll notice most of the approved ones you can just go and pull up and they're just there. You just pull it up. I think that's part of the thing. Again, I don't want to, I'm not 1,000% sure on that. I think I came across that in my research, which makes sense. Again, that's why I said, I'm not here to carry any water for Rasmussen. I just wanted to say it's pretty funny that their social media manager went online and basically said, you know what, I'm done at yelling into the clouds. Yang Gang, you guys take on the DNC. You guys are doing a good enough job already. Why don't you just fit it? Like, he literally says, here you go, Yang Gang. Go on. Do it for me. So, caution you guys. Be careful. Always be careful when someone comes to you and says, look at this. I come bearing gifts. You should do what I say.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not going to be.
But I don't know,
I'm not going to be championing.
I just wanted to point that out. I think there is just some procedural things they do that have them excluded just on a basic.
Yeah, I'm not going to be championing Rasmussen, say, oh, we all got to go fight on behalf of Rasmussen right now. As much as I still stand stupefied, Cody. I'm just stupefied that we literally have a major part of the United States of America that says, unless our friends at these media organizations like you, you can't get in, is literally what is being said.
Has that ever not just been?
It's been hidden better. No, like it's just so blatant not even now, politics. Where it's like,
that's how
this isn't even politics. This is like post-apocalyptic movies, man.
I don't think Rasmussen not counting as a DNC qualifying poll is some.
No, this is just one paper cut. This is one paper cut added to the 499 others before.
But like I said, I also think it's one of the reasons why this gamble for Andrew Yang might actually have been a good idea, though. Because this one struck a chord with a lot of people. Because I think this is one of the first. Because there's been a lot of times where you can go to someone and say, "Well, look at these graphics," and like technically Yang should have been on him and he wasn't, and people will be like, "Yeah, it's weird." It's nothing when you say, "Oh, you know, they just don't conduct polls anymore." They said there's a qualification window. It doesn't actually exist because no polls are conducted. Like MSNBC ran a video today where they're going like New Hampshire, not one qualifying poll released. What was it? Nevada, not one poll at all released since like the November debate. I mean, it was a crazy thing. And I think, like I said, I think that's the reason why we saw Newsweek write an article about it like the day it happened. And now we see Rasmussen on Twitter jumping in as well. I mean, this stands out to people. They recognize this.
Okay.
And, also, do I have it pulled up? Oh, I think I closed it. That was one of the things I want to show you guys. Maybe pull it up another video. There is an Iowa caucus poll that came out that had Andrew Yang, I believe, at 10%.
Really?
Here we go. So this is KG. Last thing I'm going to show, just while talking polling. KG polling, breaking 2020 poll, breaking as of 2 days ago. Andrew Yang hit 10% in this poll. So very interesting.
Wow.
Again, the reason why these polls are very interesting to me as well is because we pointed out they haven't really released any since like the last 2 debates. So a lot's changed. I mean, I believe somebody posted something. It's like Kamala Harris dropped out since one of the last early state polls. Isn't that crazy? Kamala Harris was in the race when these polls were being conducted. So it is nice seeing what it is. This is also just Iowa.
And it's clobbering
and it's
time.
KJ poll. Yeah, I mean, well, he's getting doubled up by Andrew. But so that was stuff I want to say. Here's the update on Poll the People. Rasmussen's taking things into their own hand by encouraging the Yang Gang to take things into their own hands, and that the DNC hear about it. I do agree, though. That probably should have been what the whole conversation always was about this, was why doesn't the DNC just open up more pollsters to the qualification period? I agree. Commissioning their own polls.
And be super transparent
I'm
about
not
the
down
criteria.
with that. But just expanding who is qualified, I think would be the easiest way of getting around this. So that's all we got in this one.
And the best part about that is that if all of these polls are being conducted scientifically in a relatively consistent manner, then they're all going to be coming up with close enough data, so much so that none of the people that do not qualify can complain because they're staring down the barrel of 15 polls that say, sorry, you didn't qualify, instead of staring down the barrel of one that's starkly different than this other organization over there. So anyway, let us know what you guys think in the comments below. We need your help sharing this video, obviously. YouTube has deprioritized political speech. Therefore, if you can share this video, that would be wildly helpful. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitter at PSP Radio 1. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.